Talk now about forms. So in HTML, forms were the original way. So way back when, HTML didn't support any scripting language, so there was no JavaScript. So forms were the only way that you could get information from a user and send it back to a server. And they continue to be important today because these are really the input elements that one often starts with. So for a form inside your body, you'll have a form. And one of the things that you specify in a form, or the basic thing that you specify in a form, is the action. So that's going to be basically when the user submits the form, what happens. And so that'll often be something like a reference on the server. So this is a reference there. This could be either a complete URL, or it could just be something that is relative to the current page. So it might be, for instance, handle new dot, I'm going to just say PHP. It's an old-fashioned scripting language that was used. So what will happen then is if the user uses a submit button, a number of input types, and they're all using an input tag. One type is submit. Okay. So that says when this element is executed, it shows up as a button, then it will go ahead and call this handle new.php action. And you provide a value, which is actually the text of the contents of this button. So there's no other contents within this tag, so we don't need a closing tag. So that's, let's say, a submit button, and let's say we want to provide a name. Okay, so we'll go ahead and provide an input field whose type is text. It is common to give, really necessary, if you want to refer to elements from other elements, to do that with an ID. Or often if you're going to be doing scripting and you want to refer to a particular element and get access to it, you would use its ID. So I'm going to put an ID here, which equals the name. I'll show you why in just a second. Right? And then we provide here it's a little confusing because you also need an attribute for a text type, which is the name. And the name is how, when we call the handle new action, how do we want to refer to this name we're providing? And so we are going to use a name of first. Okay. So this will provide an empty text field. Now, you normally want to label all of your elements, that is, give them some name, right? You don't just want an empty text field somewhere and have no idea what's supposed to go on it. You would like to have some sort of a, like that. So let's say first name. So we're going to do that with a label. So the label is going to be, I'm going to add an attribute for a second. It's going to be, let's say, first name. And we'll close that tag. And somehow we want to associate that this label is for this input field. So we're going to go ahead and use the for attribute that says what it's for. And we use its ID. Let me make it a little, so let's go ahead and highlight some of these to make clear what is referring to what. So this name refers to this name. And let's say, so that we're going to end up with a form that looks basically like first name, submit. Say the user types in John. Okay, it's going to call this handle new.php, and it's going to pass in the first name. So the first name is going to be equal to John. But it needs to somehow provide the information of which text field is this we're talking about, and we're talking about first. So first equals John. This first is equal to this first. So it's used to programmatically call back to the server and specify which value it is. Right, so let's just look at this. This is John. That's equal to this John. So it's the name of this field. Let's use one more example. Let's add on here that we also have a checkbox. So this is going to be an input type of checkbox. We are going to give an ID. This is going to be a checkbox where we're keeping track of whether this is happy. So the ID is going to be happy. And we also, again, need a name. This could be the same as happy or different. Let's make it different. Let's just say is happy. And we want to label again. So our label for happy. And it's going to be, let's say, we'll say happy question mark. So if we do this, we're going to get, after the text, we're going to get a new field that says happy. And with a checkbox there. Okay. So using this label, like we could just put some text there that says happy question mark, and have it not be associated with the checkbox itself. But there are two advantages of having an actual label that's associated with the checkbox. Advantage number one is if we're using some sort of accessibility, as we move over to the checkbox, it's going to actually reflect the fact that it says happy question mark, and they read that out. And then the second advantage is it's a much larger target. So if you click on the checkbox, it'll check and uncheck the checkbox. But if you click on happy question mark, it'll also check and uncheck the checkbox. So it gives us a larger target. So a form allows us to do this. And we have a variety of different form elements. So we've got checkboxes, radio buttons, just regular buttons, single line text fields, multi-line text fields, date pickers, pop-up lists, and so on. And you often will use that to collect input. But as we'll see, normally we don't go ahead and use this form action. Normally what's going to happen is we're going to actually just call some JavaScript within our client side program, and it will then decide when to actually send information to and from the server.